Item number 3, funding request by Go Tongariro. We have Mr. Nick Carroll, Policy Manager, to present this item. Good afternoon, Nick.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Councillors. You will have noted in the minutes earlier that you received the Go Tongariro presented to the Community Board in July. They presented a proposal to develop a plan and sought some funding. That proposal's now come forward to you for consideration of that funding. Since that proposal was presented to the board, we've worked with Go Tongariro to clarify exactly what the scope of their work is and what they want that funding for. What you'll see in the paper that I presented is the original proposal detailed and then the revised proposal. The recommendation to you is that funding's made available in 2 parts. The first part is funding for some economic analysis, and that's economic analysis that both Go Tongariro and Council can use for our future planning. And the second part is that funding's made available to assist Go Tongariro to engage independent expertise to develop their plan. That's all I intended to say at this point. Happy to take the rest of the item as read. And I'm very conscious we've got members of Go Tongariro here who may wish to speak to you about their proposal in detail.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Just before you go, is there any questions of Nick regarding this? Councillor Kostowski.
Thank you. I'm just reading through the minutes, and I noticed that on 2-1, when Tongariro Community Board had its meeting on the Tuesday, the 12th of July, under the presentation, it says under the first paragraph, the feasibility study on the Turangi CBD Mall. But then on the next paragraph, on the last line, it says develop a strategic economic growth plan for Turangi. Can you just enlarge for me exactly what it is? Because the two are, in my way of thinking, are quite succinctly different and have different outcomes as well. So
I would definitely agree with you. I think the two are, or could definitely be different, have different outcomes. I think it's probably most appropriate for Go Tongariro when they speak to you to outline exactly what they believe the detail of that plan will be. But I certainly know that the economic assessment that we've talked about in the paper is intended to provide answers about what the future economic demands are likely to be in the Turangi situation, what are going to be those drivers for the economy going forward, what are going to be the land requirements that we have, not only in the CBD but also in the industrial area. So that's what the economic analysis will cover, and I think Go Tongariro is probably in a better place to talk about exactly what their intended plan will cover as well.
Just one more question, if I may. Some of the facts and figures that you'll be seeking presumably have already been done once before in the not so distant past when we looked at Tongariro once before, Turangi once before we did the mall upgrade and the turtle pool and all that kind of thing. Is there any of that still around and useful and even pertinent?
Yes and no. There was a lot of work that was done down in the Turangi area as part of the initial work around the Turangi and Southern Settlement Structure Plan. There was no economic analysis that was done at that time, so that's definitely a hole that we've had in the past and we continue to have in terms of our future decision making as a council. And that's what the economic analysis is meant to fill, that hole. Having said that, there was still a lot of perception work done at that stage around where does the community see their future, how do they see the town moving forward in an economic sense as well as a social sense. So there'll be all of that perception work and some urban design work that we can carry forward into future planning.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Councillor Boddy.
Mr. Carroll, can I just clarify the 2 resolutions before us? What's your interpretation of an independent economic analysis?
It's an economic analysis produced by an economist who is independent from council.
And who would appoint that economist?
The intention at this point, having talked to Go Tongariro, is that council would engage the economist and seek that advice. Now, the brief would be prepared jointly with Go Tongariro to ensure that they and Council received the necessary information that we needed to go forward. I'm very conscious that the planning that Council does for Turangi Town Centre and the wider Turangi area may have slightly different focus from what Go Tongariro is seeking to do in the immediate future. But that's why it's important that we work together collaboratively to get the best out of that economic analysis for the ratepayer.
Thanks, Chairman. I'll wait for the debate to continue and just maybe come back on the word independent. Thank you.
Mr. Carroll, just a clarification on Go Tongariro. Just there, so they report to us once a year. What is their funding stream again? Exactly?
So Go Tongariro have a contract with Council. They're partly funded by Council. That contract says a couple of things in terms of reporting. It's Section 6 of that contract. The first point is that there's a requirement to meet on a 6-weekly basis. That's been taking place down in Turangi and it has involved governance. So that's very much a general progress update. The second part of that reporting requirement is around the presentation of an annual report. The last one was presented 29th of September 2015. The next one, funnily enough, is going to be presented next month, 27th of September 2016. So you'll have an opportunity to look at that as part of that process in that meeting.
Okay, so report to us once a year.
Yeah, so those are the reporting requirements, a very micro day-to-day progress report on a 6-weekly basis, and then your financial reporting and progress reporting against the requirements you've put in that contract, and that takes place on an annual basis.
Through the Chair, I'm also the liaison officer for Council and Community Board for Go Tongariro, so I've reported back to Council when there's been things of it's been an issue that we need to be aware of. So that has happened as well.
Thank you, Councillor Cousins. Okay, thank you, Mr. Carroll.
Sorry, through the Chair.
Councillor Jollins.
Sorry, just a question. Just a question, Mr. Carroll. The scope of the work that is to be anticipated with a strategic review, can you give us an indication of what you think that will cover? Because obviously you've got a price for it, so you must have an idea of what the scope will be.
Are you referring to the economic analysis? Or
no, the strategic economic growth plan.
I think, as I mentioned earlier to Councillor Krastowski, that's probably a question better directed towards Go Tongariro. I know they've had some discussions with some consultants who work in that field around the sort of plan that could be delivered and what it would cover off. And that's why you'll see that the resolution talks about a price up to $55,000. The expectation is that it could well be delivered for less than that sum.
So the expectation from Council is that would that scope cover a review of our infrastructure as well?
No. Now, the study may well consider what infrastructure is in place. And that information is publicly available, but it wouldn't, we wouldn't expect it to consider our wholesale review of the infrastructure requirements going forward.
But surely if you're enabling economic environment and the Council's responsible for helping provide that environment, we'd want to cover that off in the scope.
Yeah. One of the challenges that Council and Go Tongariro face are trying to plan for the future of a town in a dynamic environment. I think we'll all accept that the ideal would be to sit down one Sunday afternoon, draft up the perfect plan, and then go ahead and implement it. Unfortunately, that doesn't take place. We have requirements under the long-term plan in terms of rolling out our work program. We have asset management plans which have to be updated gradually. There are other tools such as the district plan which can take several years to put into place. So what we're looking at is an ongoing or a rolling process, I guess, of aligning both the planning of DGLT, EGLT, Go Tongariro and Council to ensure that as partners in the space of Turangi, that we've got a consistent plan and strategy going forward.
Sure, but if the ultimate gain is to work out what's best for Turangi, shouldn't we be looking at ourselves warts and all and just understanding what it is that we need to do to move forward rather than trying to say it has to fit in what we've currently got?
the expectation is that that's exactly what will happen. Now, Go Tongariro will look at that from a particular perspective, particularly a strong economic perspective in the development of their plan. Council similarly will look at that over the coming years with regard to our infrastructure, with regard to the way we manage public space in Turangi, with regard to the way we manage our own service delivery down there, the likes of the eyesight and the library as an example. We'll also look at that with regard to other tools that we've got, such as land use requirements and the district plan in particular in that space. So there are a whole basket of different tools and different perspectives, and I think the key thing going forward is that we're working collaboratively with the other partners to ensure that as we put each of those pieces of the puzzle into place, we're doing it in a cohesive way rather than a divisive way.
I'd be quite interested to understand Go Tongariro's perspective, because I think it's really important, whatever we do with this plan, that it has the buy-in of all the key stakeholders in the community and council, because we will get the best results. Thank you.
No, I'm fine. It's been answered. Thanks, Your Worship.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Park.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Carroll. I just wonder, when you talk about the scope of the project, are DGLT considered, the recommended resolution we're part, are DGLT considered as part of that as far as destination management goes?
We've had quite a lot of discussion with Go Tongariro and the shaping up of their thoughts around this planning work going forward, and they've been very open in acknowledging that this needs to involve engagement with other partners.
Great.
They've got a very strong link, obviously, through to Enterprise Great Lake Taupo, but also Destination Great Lake Taupo. And I think everyone would openly acknowledge that tourism is a key component of that economy going forward. So having DGLT as part of the ongoing discussion and the development of that plan is going to be critical, just as it'll be critical having council involved, given our public land ownership and infrastructure provision in that town.
And it's could be funded by ratepayers' money. Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Okay. Thanks, Mr. Carroll. Yeah. Mr. Wayne Smith, would you like to come forward, the chairman of Go Tongariro? And Christine? Come and sit down, Christine, if you like.
Yeah.
Cool.
Got to have company.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And welcome.
Yeah.
So the floor is yours, Wayne. So.
Thank you, Your Worship, the Mayor, councillors. I'd just like to read you a pre-prepared statement that we've put together and just really outline our rationale behind what we're trying to achieve today. Go Tongariro, first of all, Go Tongariro would like to acknowledge and thank the Taupo District Council for this opportunity to talk briefly in support of our funding submission that's before you. Go Tongariro also wishes to acknowledge the assistance and advice from Nick Carroll and the staff within TDC in putting this submission together on our behalf. And we would also acknowledge the support and suggestions of the Turangi-Tongariro Community Board, who without their assistance in the beginning, this most probably would not have started. And also obviously the community of Turangi as well, because they have a vested interest in this. And for supporting us here today. Thank you. Turangi, the little town that should have, but didn't. Some say that Turangi town centre is pretty shabby, a bit of a ghost town, businesses are closing, nothing to attract the visitors into town, and they say Turangi has not a lot to offer. Those are generally feedback that we've had from various review sites, people that have come through Turangi. So that's their perception of what they see. And Turangi was a town with a great future, which is now behind it. So that gives you an indication of where, as a community, we're coming from and what we're trying to improve going into the future. However, Go Tongariro believes, and recent trends would suggest, that Turangi does have a future. But that future needs direction, guidance, and an orchestrated implementation of an independent strategy plan to achieve the greater success. A town's vibrancy is about the dynamic of the whole community and the area, not just the state of the town centre. So it's not just the town centre that we're trying to improve, it is the community as a whole. And comments earlier through when Nick was talking is that it is very important that we communicate and with the community of Turangi. In the absence of any current economic development plan for Turangi, there is a compelling need for such a strategy as Go Tongariro proposes, which will provide the pathway forward. This is the direction that the community of Turangi is now demanding. The document before you outlines Go Tongariro's strategy to achieve the desired economic growth for Turangi. This is an opportunity for the current Taupo District Council to send a strong and convincing message to the community of Turangi that by supporting Go Tongariro's application for funding, TDC recognises the importance of this independent study and the results that it will provide for the community of Turangi. Thank you. Questions?
Right. Thank you, Wayne. Christine, did you want to chip anything in at this stage? Listen up. All right. Okay. Questions. Councillor Krasowski.
Thank you for that, Wayne. I just come back to the point that I raised earlier, and I noticed that in the revised proposal, the fourth bullet point once again says, present a SWOT analysis of Turangi's town centre with a view to establishing the future positioning of the town centre. Identify key influences. From my perspective, I would like to think and hope that we are not just concentrating on the Turangi town centre as indicated on here.
You're quite correct. And that's an assumption. As I say, getting the wording right and over the two meetings and numerous emails that we've had to get to the proposal that's before you at the moment, obviously things like that slip through. But it is a community-based initiative, and it is addressing the community as a whole. Strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats are really what we're trying to get out there to get an action plan together that will then give us a pathway to go forward.
Thank you.
Councillor Cousins.
Through the chair, I just wanted to say to the council and to acknowledge all the Turangi people that are here today, and Tonganui from Chairman of the Community Board. This shows how much this means to our community. I don't think I've ever seen our town so united over a single goal before, and it's very heartening to see. I'd also like to acknowledge Christine and Wayne from Go Tongariro, who have put this together. Christine for her diligence. She did everything that was asked of her of council and above, and she has followed through on that, so Christine needs to be commended. I had set a question for Christine. In terms of the review, it is my understanding from the brief, and Wayne, you can answer this as well, that we want it to be 360. We want it to be a 360-degree view of ourselves, an audit. Would that be correct? Self-audit. To find out where we are, that's looking at all our warts and all. Thank you.
Councillor Park.
Yes, thank you, Christine and Wayne, and yes, you do a great job down at our southern end. The figure of 55k, I'm just wondering, being budgeted expenditure, how have you come about that this is the right amount?
When we started to embark on this project, we tested the market and regarding what it would cost to try and get some form of feasibility study, strategy plan, call it what you like, drawn up and presented in a form that we could then work with on a short to medium term time frame. And we got 3 indications from the market of what that cost would be, and it varied between $35,000 to $55,000, just depending on whether you took the whole 9 yards of what was available. Of the recommendation. So that was really the market price that we put into the submission.
So you're quite comfortable if this was to proceed?
And we've checked that, and as I say, there's opportunities to work collaboratively as Mr. Carroll has outlined in his talk, that by getting some of that information, the data, on a collaborative basis, that could take away some of the expenditure that we're looking at. But that's still as a yet to be defined an amount.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Harvey.
Yes, I think that sounds like a really great idea, and I like the idea of Zane's, the way he said it's a warts and all, looking at everything right through the whole township, everyone. Are you going to involve members of the community as well?
Most definitely,
as
yes.
stakeholders, including business owners, building owners? Have you gone through that?
We've had loose discussions at this stage because really we had a plan to actually do this prior to making a submission, but obviously for us to progress funding or the lack of funding would mean the success or not the success of the project. So we decided to put the funding application ahead of getting a working group put together, and that would involve members of the community, stakeholders, and the Turangi-Tongariro Community Board to actually get a set of guidelines put together before we start to go further afield. But we would envisage in having public meetings with the community as a whole to get them on board.
It's vital to get,
It is.
particularly the town centre. I think it's vital to get some building owners as part of this, so that they buy into it and can see what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not just about talk; it's about actually action, making something happen.
Yes, oh, most definitely. And this is what I say. There's been numerous occasions in the past where things are sat on a shelf and gather dust. Well, this is one project that, as far as we, Tongariro, we don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chair, sorry, just on that, Cousins. Sorry, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councillor Harvey. This is a defining document for us, for our town, and that's why it's so crucial.
Yeah.
We're trying to take control of our future, and I think that the community. You talk about stakeholders. I say half the gallery would love to be as part of that group, that working group.
Excuse me for turning around. God.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Body.
Just going back to who's going to be engaged, if we look at 3(2), it states quite clearly that engagement with the community and specific stakeholders, so I think you've covered that. But I'm also interested in taking up Councillor Krasovski's comments on 3(1). It actually states your ability as Go Tongariro, and I'll just read the words, to be able to demonstrate that it's a clear plan to support the delivery of economic growth. And you're talking about the area of Turangi and not just the town centre. Wayne, option 1 states Go Tongariro to prepare the strategic document. What are your views on how this document should be put together? Should it be Go Tongariro by itself, council by itself, or, as Mr. Carroll said, a joint effort? I
think it has to be a joint effort. We don't have the resource or the ability. To be fair, the resource that you see is presently sitting in front of you between Christine and myself, so it is imperative that we have those relationships both with Taupo District Council, EGLT, DGLT, the Community Board, and the stakeholders in the community of Turangi. It's something that we can't do by ourselves, so we need to have that input.
I'll just follow that up. It's my line of thinking. If you had a completely independent person doing the report, that had no tie with the council or yourselves, do you think you may get a more warts and all assessment of what Turangi may or may not need?
It's a possibility. It is a possibility, although I would like to think that if you do have a consultant, they would tend to, if there was something that was quite obvious, you would get it. Doesn't matter what side of the fence they were on, so to speak.
Thank you.
Just one last question for me.
Donaldson.
Thank you. Sorry, this is not working today. I guess it's seeking some assurances that the report that you're going to do, I guess, is going to be all-encompassing, because very much some of the key words I see in this proposal talk about economic indicators, but true sustainable planning for a future includes social, economic, cultural and environmental factors. So you'll be looking at all of those. Is that the intention with this report?
Yes, it is. There's things that obviously Go Tongariro can act upon, and there will be no doubt parts of the report that would be better suited for council to pick up on. But that's for the future. We don't know precisely what we're going to get until we get it. But certainly it will be all-encompassing.
Oh, no, that's great, because I mean, I go back and I look at your charter for when you were originally set up, and that's all about empowering yourselves and the community to actually take the lead on this.
Yes.
So I would like to make sure that as council we don't slow you down on that process and let you make it happen.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Sorry.
That's right. No, carry on.
Councillor Williamson.
Through the chair. Thank you, Wayne, Christine. Obviously, I also see a collaborative approach, for the, through the obviously process through the 10-year plan. There's obviously guidelines through there, but we also have to be sort of smart and be quick to respond to change and opportunities. And obviously a healthy district includes a healthy Turangi as well as Mangakino and Taupo. So
Yes.
You do good things to
without
the whole economic growth plan.
Yeah, without doubt. And I think the community of Turangi seems to have, for whatever reason, seems to think it's been shortchanged in the past, and that's in the past now. We're moving forward, looking forward. So this is a good opportunity from the responses that we've had thus far from the community to actually galvanise the community together in something that will be achievable.
Very good. All steady. Councillor Hickling.
So you've read the officer's report,
Yes,
I take it.
yes,
There's 3 options there.
yes.
Which is your preferred?
I'm not particularly keen about option 3.
That's why I'm asking.
Yes, and I would like to have that noted.
I thought we could delete that.
Thank you. Certainly, option 1 was the option that we put forward in our original submission, and that's just a statement of fact. Option 2, I would suggest, is also very workable. So really option 1 or option 2, but not option 3. Thank you.
No.
Councillor Christowski.
Thank you. My final question is that in all of the documentation that I have read, is I haven't come across any timelines per se. Can you give me an indicative idea as to when you're trying to and hoping to achieve something for the next phase, so to speak?
We originally had a timeline in the very beginning of somewhere in the vicinity of 4 to 6 months to get the actual report done or the strategy put together. And but I would suggest certainly within 12 months. I would like to think that it would be well entrenched by then.
So that if there were any requirements for future funding, it could be incorporated in the next long-term plan.
Yeah, and that's why I say there will no doubt be items that will drop out of the strategy that we're looking for that may well fit and fall into the long-term plan. And so that's always an option.
Councillor Cousins.
No, I'm fine.
So I suppose notwithstanding any further discussion, on the understanding that you'll be doing sound reporting back to Community Board and through Council, and that you'll be working collaboratively with Council, and that it's a 360-degree review of our situation, I'd like to move the recommended resolution of option 2.
I'll second that.
Okay. All right. Just like that. Any other comment? I think well done, and thank you for your application here, and obviously the supporters here today. It's wonderful to see all the people from Turangi up here, and I think there's a lot of nodding going around the room. So we're more than happy to support this proposal. I think it is a defining document that could represent the future. So with that being the case, it's been moved by Councillor Cousins and seconded by Councillor Stewart. And I think no one wants to speak against the motion.
At your own peril.
All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 4.